When we're practicing and doing small studies, it can be helpful to take images and break them down into small, manageable shapes.
To paint our cheesecake, we'd need white, rose, yellow ochre, purple, and black. I diluted some ivory black to do the sketch, and using those basic shapes that we talked about, I just sketched out lightly the different elements of the cheesecake. I mixed together some yellow ochre and white for the crust of the cheesecake. Then I added some more white to the yellow ochre mixture to make the bottom of the cheesecake. I mixed together some purple and white with a tiny amount of yellow ochre for the top of the cheesecake. I mixed together some of the rose and the purple and used it to paint in the sauce, the berry sauce on the top of the cheesecake. I left a little gap at the end because that's where we're going to put our berries. I'm just going to add in a rough suggestion of a plate or a surface for the cake to sit on, and for that I've just mixed together some of the ivory black and a little bit of titanium white. I went quite carefully around the edges of the cheesecake and left a tiny little gap between the plate and the cheesecake because I might put in a highlight or two later on there. Next to the cheesecake on the underside, we put a darker shadow where the shadow of the cheesecake would be. And for that, we just added another tiny little amount of ivory black to that gray mix of the plate. I also put some of that gray around the edges of the plate just to give it a little bit of definition there so it's not such a flat object. For the background color, I used the same color as the sauce, but I added some ivory black to it to make it a darker purplish color. This will help the cheesecake to stand out against the background. Once that was done, I used a soft, clean brush just to softly blend away some of the brush strokes, some of the ridges in the paint to make it a bit of a smoother surface to paint on. Because this is just a sketch, We don't need too much texture or anything like that in our painting. Using that same dark mixture, while it's on the brush, we can paint in some of the berries, and we just need to draw little circles and then fill them in with that darker color. We can then take some of the gray that we used on the plate and use that on one side of the berries only. And in this case, it would be on the left side because that's where the light is coming from. One side of the berry will be lighter than the other. We'll use some more of that color just for the filling in between the two layers of the cheesecake. It will appear lighter because the paint is wet from the first two layers, but that's good. We don't want it to be as dark as the berries. This line shouldn't be a straight line because it will be absorbed into the cake, so we want it to be an uneven line if you can. Continuing on with that same dark, we can make a little line under the cheesecake where it rests on the plate, a little shadow there. At this point, I realized I'd forgotten to put a little highlight with a yellow ochre crust on the top of the cheesecake, so I went back and filled that in. And then I just touched up some of the darker areas that I'd messed up with doing that. I also decided to add a little of the purplish color to the shadow because the cake would reflect onto the shiny plate. You would see a little bit of the cake color in the shadows of the cake. So I just added that in just to be fancy. I added in some lighter areas along the top in those gaps that we left earlier. Along the top of the cheesecake, down the side, down the pointy end, and along the tops of the plate. I also added a little of that lighter area here and there in places along the top edge of the cheesecake, just where I thought the light might catch it. Going to add some fun details now. Things like little drips down the side of the cake where the sauce has dripped down. And why not add another little berry or two to the plate if you like? Of course, if you've decided to do a different type of cheesecake, maybe a strawberry cheesecake or a lemon cheesecake, you might want to put other types of fruit on the plate or on the topping of your cheesecake. Any of these colors can be swapped out for any color cheesecake that you would prefer. I've just decided to do a blueberry one. We're just about finished. We're going to put a couple of highlights here and there, maybe on the top of the plate where the light will catch, one or two of the berries maybe, and maybe a couple of highlights in the drips or along the top. Just use your imagination, see where you think they might look good, where the light would catch your cheesecake. Oh, and there we have the most delicious looking cheesecake. Thank you so much for following this tutorial. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and please subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you in the next video.